We're going to be recording this so that we can maybe share this with future students, as well as think about sending this out to you so you might be able to refer to this later as well. I'm going to be sharing my screen. I've got a quick presentation that I've put together, and then we can talk over any of the questions that you may have so that we can actually talk about the things that you're most interested in. And I just need to move this so that I can get to my present button. Sorry, now I've lost it. There it is, great. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see this now. I wanted to share, say welcome to everyone. My name is Sarah Hyman. I'm the Student Life Program Director for the University of Notre Dame at Tantor, AKA our Jerusalem Study Abroad programs. We're recording this session so that we can share it with other students. So please keep that in mind if you're using the chat feature, or if you feel like you may want to refer to any of this information later. I also know that we're still in the midst of the 2-week pause, and some of you may be joining us from isolation or from quarantine. Please know that my and our entire team's prayers are with you, and we hope that wherever you find yourself today, this presentation might be like a little mini virtual pilgrimage to a place that many of you have probably never been. Our primary goal is to help you imagine what studying abroad in Jerusalem could look like, and we hope to devote the majority of our time to your questions. So feel free to pose those using the chat feature, and we'll get to those at the end of the presentation. Or you can just simply wait until the formal presentation is finished, and then we can chat live about any of the questions that you may have. So first, I want us to just kind of walk through quickly what we're going to do today. Our journey to Jerusalem is going to be made up of highlights. I could offer a lot more perspective on these items as well as others, but in the interest of time, I'm intentionally limiting myself so that we have time for your questions rather than me just giving you a lot of facts and introductions. Please don't hesitate to follow up with any questions you may have about the specific categories we discuss, or just sort of thinking about things we haven't touched upon that you're very interested in as well. I also just want to acknowledge that this presentation presumes that you'll mostly be coming from a knowledge of American culture and a US background, but we know that many of you may have other cultural references as well. We're happy to help you think through the particularities of your situation if that would be helpful at any point. So as we think about your time, I would like to begin by just sharing a little about the place that you'll call home. The University of Notre Dame at Tantor has 2 main institutes that work together to create one cohesive community: the Jerusalem Global Gateway, the JGG, and the Tantor Ecumenical Institute. The JGG hosts our study abroad programs, academic conferences, basically any opportunity we have for students, faculty, and staff to live and to study in Jerusalem. Additionally, the Tantor Ecumenical Institute has been in operation since 1972, when we first opened the doors of Tantor. In the lobby, you'll see our banner welcoming you to UNDT, as well as a bust of Father Ted Hesburgh, CSC, whose name you should recognize as a former president of the University of Notre Dame. Father Ted was instrumental in Tantor's founding and development, a request that came directly from Pope Paul VI. It's important to know that our community is made up of more than just Notre Dame study abroad students. It includes our staff, some of whom are residential and live there with their families, as well as scholars and pilgrims from all over the world who are participating in continuing education programs, sabbaticals, conducting research, or who are simply here on pilgrimage. We hope and expect that you'll see yourself as part of our wider Tantor community and also become a part of our role as a place of hospitality. Tantor has gained a reputation locally as a place where people from different groups and communities can gather together in a place where all can feel welcome, both Israelis and Palestinians, for instance, and a place where ecumenical and interfaith dialogue can flourish. We often refer to being at the crossroads, literally. We're surrounded by both Jewish and Palestinian neighborhoods. We're on the road that connects Jerusalem to Bethlehem. We sit on the top of a hill and have been able to help promote peace and healing within the region and between the peoples who call this place home. During your time at Tantor, we hope you'll learn from both Israelis and Palestinians, from Jews, from Christians, from Muslims, from secular and religious peoples, and that you'll come away with a more nuanced understanding of Jerusalem as a part of the Holy Land. In addition, we know, of course, that while you're here to study abroad and you'll have a lot of great learning opportunities, I also just want to acknowledge that you need a little fun in your life. You may need to have some sense of what you're kind of walking into in terms of what amenities are available. And so we have a list here of just some of the things that are available at Tantor for US students to use, for the community to use. And ultimately, we hope that you'll help contribute to making this a place where all are welcome and where all can live together in community. Our hope is that our dining room, for instance, becomes a place of encounter, and that while you're bonding as a group of study abroad students, you'll also see yourself as part of our wider Tantor community. Our hope is that you truly feel that Tantor is your home away from home, and we hope that you'll contribute to the diverse community that shares this space while you explore all that the Holy Land has to offer to you. I've referenced the Holy Land several times already. In part, it's because it's an easy way to make reference to this area without diving into some of the geopolitical realities. But it's also because you can't study abroad in Jerusalem without understanding that it is, first and foremost, a holy city to each of the Abrahamic faiths. You'll be able to pray at, to see, and to interact with major holy sites for Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, as well as learn more about religious communities which you may not be as familiar with. As one example, Christians are very easily a minority within Israel as well as within the West Bank. And the Christian communities that do exist may exist in a different proportion than what we're used to within the United States. So Orthodox communities and Catholic communities, Roman or Latin communities as they're known in the Middle East, those are the predominant groups. There are some more mainline Protestant traditions represented, particularly the Anglican, Lutheran, and Methodist communities, but there's almost no representation from the evangelical communities or from some of the different religious communities, Christian communities in the South, like the Baptist tradition, for instance. Our holy sites can often become a major source of tension, primarily because what they remember, what is venerated there, what they represent is so fundamental to identity. And yet they can also become a way of recognizing the humanity and the coexistence between different groups. One of my favorite facts about the Holy Land is that the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is this picture on the upper right, this is an image from part of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. This is the place where Christians believe Jesus died, was buried, and was resurrected. This church is shared by 7 different Christian communities. They all lay claim to certain parts of the church. They all have different rituals and different tasks that they carry out. And there are rules that govern who does what when. Those rules date back to 1728. And because there was such conflict about who would actually hold the key that unlocked the doors or locked the doors, the Christians decided to give the keys to a Muslim family. And so this Muslim family holds the key to the most sacred site within the Christian community. This kind of, in some ways, goes against what can often seem what we hear about most, which is Jerusalem as a place of conflict and unrest, and can demonstrate, I think, that this is also a place where coexistence happens and that there has to be collaboration between people from different groups. And in beautiful ways, we help one another in living out the deepest parts of our identity. You'll also just need to notice that almost everything that you encounter in Jerusalem will touch on religion in some way, whether we're thinking about you're entering a holy site, but also when you go to a restaurant. Restaurants are often guided by things like kosher or halal rules. So the dietary restrictions may impact what's served within that particular restaurant. But also even thinking about how you buy groceries and where you buy them might be dictated with different religious customs as well. Religion, of course, is not the only thing that you should know about what might be different about studying abroad in Jerusalem. The cultural traditions and the elements of daily life are different than a lot of life within the US. So for instance, things like spices, vegetables, sweets, bakery items, fruits, dried goods, all of those are most commonly purchased in markets, sort of similar to what a farmer's market might be in the US. Places like the Mahane Yehuda, which is in West Jerusalem, or even as you walk through the streets of the Old City in Jerusalem or in Bethlehem, you'll see different vendors selling what they have to sell. So there's a lot of options available for people. And you'll notice that as you walk the streets and the alleys of the Old City, you can also see places where you can buy souvenirs or clothing or electronics. And these places that we kind of associate with being very holy, solemn places are also places where people live. And so there's an interesting mix of the holy and the historical side by side with modern society. I also feel like I would be neglecting something if I didn't highlight the fact that the food is just delicious, all right? So when we think about things like hummus, falafel, shawarma, kanafe, which is a delicious dessert, these are all sort of the local cuisine that you can be invited to try and explore. But we also have things like tacos available and pizza. The toppings might be a little different, and it might taste a little different than you're used to. But if you have those cravings for home, we can find you places to explore those as well. I just want to make a note to something that I've referenced a couple times now, which is that Jerusalem does have a reputation sometimes for being a place of conflict and violence. And it's true. You may observe moments of conflict between security forces and civilians, or between members of different religious groups or different ethnic groups. However, I want to affirm that Jerusalem is a safe place to be. While your experience will include regularly crossing through security checkpoints, and you'll have robust guidelines issued by NDI for your safety, if you're willing to step outside of your comfort zone and explore a new part of the world, you'll have a fantastic experience and come away with a deeper understanding of Israeli and Palestinian perspectives. You'll also have the opportunity to witness how the Holy Land is more than the way it's often represented in the media. That while violence does occur, the fact remains that it is, by and large, a place of peaceful coexistence where most people are simply trying to work together to live in peace and where all can flourish. Tantor plays a role in fostering this peace, and we hope you'll embrace the opportunity to listen to diverse perspectives and to come away with a more nuanced understanding. So just to touch a little bit more on some of the cultural realities, I want to acknowledge that part of your Jerusalem experience will also include this opportunity to explore an area where basically anything built after 1800 is considered modern. History is a much more deep and rich and complex thing that we often encounter within the US. Archaeological sites are everywhere you look, even on site at Tantor. Biblical sites can be explored throughout the Holy Land. You can see the Dead Sea Scrolls, which are the oldest known written texts of the Bible. And we can see ruins of earlier cultures right alongside modern day structures. Every corner can truly bring a new adventure and an encounter with the past in conversation with the present. The history of Jerusalem is important. We also know it's often helpful for students to engage with the local community through volunteer opportunities and internships. This isn't as sort of flashy of a slide, so I apologize for that. It's just some text. But basically, we want to help you think about how you can explore the modern challenges that face the people who call this land home. Maybe you're interested in working at a lab at Hebrew University, continuing your scientific or academic research. Or maybe you want to work with kids or on climate change or with the developmentally disabled, or on peace and resolution and conflict management. The good news is that we have a wide database of resources for you and a lot of great opportunities to engage with local NGOs, different organizations that are helping meet the needs that exist within these communities and different populations. But we're also happy to work with you if you have a particular interest that you'd like to explore while you're in Jerusalem. And we can help match you with a place that kind of needs your skills and your interests, but also gives you an opportunity to think about a cause that you're really passionate about and how it's lived out and practiced in a different part of the world. In addition to sort of these ways of thinking about how you can engage in the local community, what your academic options are, I want to just acknowledge, of course, there's a lot of really great cultural and religious places to go and to visit while you're studying abroad in Jerusalem. Within the local community, there's things like the Mount of Olives and the Garden of Gethsemane. certainly a religious option. There's hiking in the Wadi Kelt, which is sort of like a little desert valley that connects Bethlehem and Jericho. The Israel Museum has a lot of really great biblical items and historical items, as well as modern art, and thinking about some of the ways that Israeli culture has become present throughout the world. Thinking about places that you can go for nightlife and sort of fun things outside of the classroom. Even sort of thinking practically about our town centers are often structured around religious life, which is part of the significant thing. So when you go to Bethlehem, for instance, and you're outside of the Church of the Nativity, right across the Nativity Square, you'll see the Mosque of Omar. And so even our towns are structured with the idea that you're in dialogue with people from different communities, because there's no way to ignore one another. You're side by side and you're living together as neighbors. And there's interesting ways of being able to explore that, of going to these religious sites like the Jordan River, where Jesus was baptized, or really just exploring all these other places that are full of fun, like places like Haifa or Tel Aviv, going to pilgrimage sites like the Sea of Galilee or Nazareth, to go hiking in the Golan Heights or scuba diving in Eilat in the Red Sea. Some really fascinating places that maybe are non-religious, right? And step outside of this idea that Jerusalem is just a place of conflict and religion, but also a place where you can have a lot of fun. I'd also just like to acknowledge that Tel Aviv in particular, which is the image that's on the top of the top row middle picture, Tel Aviv has great beaches. Tel Aviv is also internationally known as sort of an LGBTQ hotspot for the Middle East. So it's known as being a very inclusive community and can be a place where you can feel really free in a lot of ways in expressing your authentic self. You can also do that in Jerusalem, of course, but Tel Aviv has a great reputation for that. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that and share that information in case that's of interest for anyone. And then finally, you may also want to explore nearby places. We often try to arrange a trip to Jordan for the students that are in our programs. This is an add-on, so it would be something that would cost a little more, but Jordan can be a really great place to visit, seeing the wonders of the world, like Petra, to go to ancient Roman ruins in Jerash, the Wadi Rum. It may look familiar because there's a lot of movies that have been filmed in Wadi Rum. So like The Martian, for instance, all of the scenes on Mars are from the Wadi Rum for the most part, which is a desert area in Jordan. To think about going to Mount Sinai in Egypt or to the Giza pyramids. Those are a little more complicated to get to sometimes, but they're totally worth the effort. And sort of our students in the past have had some great stories about how they managed to do that and the worthwhileness of that experience from their perspective. That's where I'm going to end my prepared remarks. I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now so that we can take any questions that you all may have instead, and just sort of move to what you are most interested in. So anybody have any questions right now? I don't know if students have questions, or maybe Laura wants to prompt me to talk about something that I missed. I don't know if you all know Laura, so Laura is really your best point of contact on campus. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself, Laura.
I know I see a couple familiar names here and people that I've met with before. So my name is Laura Stipik. I am a program director with NDI on main campus, and I will be your point of contact for everything basically before you go abroad and then kind of once you come back. So everything from interest to application and any questions in between. So I'm here also if you want to ask any questions. And then, well, I'll leave it open and then I may prompt you, Sarah, if there aren't questions from students.
And I know I just kind of went through a laundry list of things, so sorry about that. I tried to keep it as brief as possible and interesting, hopefully. Yeah, great. Looks like Anne-Marie might have a question.
Yeah, my name is Anne-Marie, and I was just wondering, if we go abroad to Jerusalem, are there opportunities to learn the languages there?
Yes,
Yeah.
great question. I thought about mentioning that. Yes, so you would be able to successfully study abroad if all you knew was English. So our instruction is primarily in English, but you can take Arabic classes very easily. For students that are studying Arabic, you can continue your Arabic instruction while you are studying abroad there. There's also the option to learn Hebrew. We often try to give students a little bit of a cheat sheet so they know like even simple phrases, so how you say thank you in both Hebrew and Arabic, for instance, and think about ways that you can greet people. It is the case that most signs that are within Israel are going to be in both Hebrew, Arabic, in all three languages, so Hebrew, Arabic, and in English, which will help you navigate around. The more Arabic that you know, the easier it'll be to travel in the West Bank. The more Hebrew you know, the easier it is to kind of travel within Israel itself. But you can get around with Israel or with English itself without a problem, but it's a great opportunity to learn these languages and explore them more if you've already started that instruction. Is there anything more you'd say on that, Laura?
Yeah, I would add that it's quite popular that students choose to take another language, especially those that have never taken any sort of Arabic or Hebrew, so don't think you have to know any. It's just a great introduction and to just further that immersion into the local culture, especially living at Tantour. Our staff, for the most part, is Arabic speaking. So they're super patient and super willing to practice with you and will get so excited if you're even just putting in a little bit of effort to learn the language. So it's a great opportunity if you really want to kind of take that next step to even just learn a little bit, and it's helpful to get around.
Wonderful, thank you.
I think yes. I don't see your name, but I see you have your hand up. I can tell you where you are on my screen, but okay, great. Mary Kate?
Hi. Yeah, I was, this might be a question for later in the process, but like class options available for to study abroad, what do those look like?
So there's a variety of options. I'll just start very briefly, like outlining, and I'll let Laura chime in with more of the specifics. So our students take classes at both Bethlehem University, which is a Catholic university in the West Bank, as well as at Hebrew University through the Rothberg International Institute, which is an Israeli institution in North Jerusalem, basically. And so you can take classes in both of those institutions. We often also have a core course that we would teach at the University of Notre Dame at Tantour. And I'll let Laura talk a little bit more about the specifics for students.
Yeah, so generally speaking, you will be taking one class at the Gateway itself, and then at least one class at Hebrew University and at least one class at Bethlehem University. We do that intentionally because they're all very different environments, and we really want you guys to engage with each institution and meet local students at each school as well. As far as classes themselves go, this program very consistently offers Second Theo, Second Philo, History, Fine Arts, Lit, a lot of your core course requirements. So I always suggest, if you can, to try to save those for your semester abroad, just because they're very consistently on offer. And then additionally, as you can imagine, a lot of kind of political science classes. There's a good amount of psych classes, a lot more arts and letters. We do have some science and some computer science, but those are a little more selective. So I would want to kind of chat with you one-on-one, depending if you were not arts and letters, if you needed some more guidance on classes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Looks like Andrew.
Hi. So yeah, I spoke with Miss Laura actually a couple hours ago, and just kind of follow up on a question I had for Miss Laura earlier is, so I'm in the process of convincing my parents, since I'm considering Jerusalem, that, convincing my parents that Jerusalem's safe. Mm-hmm. What resources do you have to kind of, I guess, directly show them that, like, it's going to be a very safe process?
Yeah, it's a fair question. I mean, I think there's a lot that people receive in the media that gives an impression that everything in Jerusalem is always about conflict and violence, and the day-to-day life is very different. So we have sort of like one-page handouts that we can give that kind of give the highlights of what we do on our end, but also just sort of the practical realities of I think it's this is true, Laura can correct me, but like basically in the past 5 years, there have been no terrorist incidents that have impacted our study abroad programs in any way, shape, or form. So we feel confident that this is a safe place for students to be. We also acknowledge that, like when you're studying anywhere, you need to be aware of your surroundings and you need to be cognizant of how that particular community functions and what some of the challenges might be. But we do think it's a safe place, and we do, I think, have resources we can share.
Yeah, if anyone is interested in, Andrew, if you actually just want to shoot me an email, that way I have your email address, I can send along, and goes for anyone else on this call as well, I can send along that one-page document Sarah's referencing. It's a PDF which talks briefly about kind of the safety and security situation within Jerusalem itself, but also kind of how NDI oversees our processes for determining and procedures in place in Jerusalem.
All right.
Other questions?
Any other questions? Okay, was what we shared helpful for you as you're thinking about what this might look like and imagining sort of study abroad in Jerusalem? Okay, I see some nods, that's helpful, good, I'm glad. Like our hope is that, oh good, even way to use these little emojis, you're all experts with Zoom now, so you know how to do these things, so thank you.
Now everybody's showing
Getting
up.
a little feedback, it's helpful. I also want to acknowledge, so you're hearing from me, Sarah, and I am currently in the US because I have not yet been able to return to Jerusalem. I will be there by the time you get there. And we also have a lot of great people that are on site that will be helping you. I am originally from the US. I was a rector on the main campus, so I know Notre Dame students really well. I'm also not a native to the area in any way, shape, or form, but most of our staff is, right? And so you'll be able to interact with our staff and hear more about their experiences. One of my other favorite stories, I told this story about the Holy Sepulchre and this Muslim family holding the key to the holiest Christian site. But we also have a staff member who literally grew up playing kickball like on the roof of the Holy Sepulchre because that was what you did when you lived next to the Holy Sepulchre. So there's just these great ways that these places that I think if you have a religious background or identity or you're interested in it at all, basically you can experience these places in not just sort of a historical way, but in a really lived reality about how they come to life in the everyday life of people who call that place home.
The other just quick thing I want to highlight about this program is that there's a lot of intentionality that goes into planning this program. Everything from attending the 2 different universities, different excursions that are going to take you to different regions, to hear different stories, to get different perspectives. We try really hard to make sure that you're hearing from as many people as possible. So as Sarah's mentioning, there's a lot of different perspectives in the area in terms of political views, in terms of religion, and different faiths that people are practicing, to just different food that people are eating. So I think although the country itself is quite small, there is so much variety here, and I think it's one of the most unique opportunities for study abroad that NDI has to offer, just because within this little place, you can hear from so many different people, learn so many different things, and really kind of take some time to look internally and kind of understand your own values and your own beliefs and your own faith. So I think it's an amazing opportunity, and I really hope that some of you guys take us up on spending a semester or summer. We have summer there as well. If you're not quite ready to commit for a semester, we have shorter opportunities too.
Great. And did I see, Anne Marie, that you might have had another question occur? Great.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask about the summer program because I'm considering different study abroad options, and could you just speak a little bit to what the summer program is like, in comparison to the full semester?
Yeah, I'm going to let Laura take
I'll go
this
ahead
one.
and take that one. Yeah. Yeah. So basically, obviously, other than being shorter, that's the number one answer, right? So this will be a 3-week opportunity during the summer. We're still finalizing what exactly the course is going to be. It's going to either fulfill the history requirement or the second theology requirement. So keep an eye on the website for that information. But basically, it's going to serve as, I kind of like to say, like a quick little taste of the Jerusalem program, right? We do a really good job of making it really intensive and quite similar in terms of the excursions for the semester, but obviously we can only fit so much in 3 weeks, right? So it's a guide for 3 weeks. And honestly, I've had a couple students who have done it, the summer program their freshman year, and then come back and spent the semester. That's happened enough times that I feel confident saying, I can mention it here, that it's a good way to kind of get an intro to see if this is somewhere that you'd want to spend a semester. But it's an amazing opportunity. It's a busy time, but it's great.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Andrew?
When exactly in the summer is the summer program?
Yeah, good question. So as we're trying to still work out the course, that is also meaning we're still working out the dates. If I had to guess, I'm going to guess probably mid to May for 3 weeks. So probably mid-May to early June. And I'll post that as soon as I can. We're pretty close to having it kind of nailed down, but that's traditionally when it's been. And the applications aren't due until November 1st, so you guys have some time to kind of think through it and make sure this is a great option for you.
Okay, any other questions? Anything else we should highlight? Okay. Okay, we've got Meredith who's got a question.
Hello. So I'm wondering about the rolling timeline for study abroad more generally, how that impacts admission into certain programs.
So it's not exactly rolling. Can you explain a little bit what you mean, or do you just mean like when applications are reviewed?
Yeah, so if you apply earlier, will that give you higher chances in certain programs, or is that not true?
Nope. So you can submit your application anytime from today through November 1st. The applications close at 11:59 on November 1st, but nothing will be reviewed until that date. So you can submit now, or you can submit, please don't submit November 1st at 11:58, but you could technically. But yeah, nothing's reviewed on a rolling basis. So don't feel like you have to rush.
Just as sort of like a quick sense, or maybe you can like give a thumbs up, or you can like nod along if you're sharing your video right now. Are you mostly planning to apply for the next cycle, or do we have any like first year students here, or just kind of exploring opportunities for the future? Like who's planning to maybe apply for this next cycle to be abroad next year? Most people are. Okay, great. Because that just gives us a sense of sort of why people might be here and sort of what they're interested in. I also think like we don't have clear answers yet with this, right? But we'll know more about how the pandemic may or may not be impacting that. It would be ludicrous to say for sure anything right now, but know that will be part of what may impact our what we're able to do as a program as well, whether we can travel to different countries or not and things like that. Just to acknowledge realities.
Hard to ignore right now.
I know, right?
One other quick highlight. If you guys are available tonight at 6:30 p.m., we are going to have an Influencers Tell All session, and we're going to highlight one of our returnees from Jerusalem, Megan Butler. She's going to do a quick little presentation on her time, and she'll be available for questions. So I know we can provide a lot of information, but hearing it directly from a student is much more meaningful, and I totally understand that. So if you're available tonight at 6:30, do make sure you check that out. It'll be really nice to hear kind of the different experiences that they had.
Andrew.
And will that be recorded? Because I don't think I'll be able to make it now. at 6:30?
No, we're not going to record that one. But if you are not able to make it, since I already told you to email me about the PDF thing to send you, you can email me also, and I'll pass along Megan's contact information to you, and then you can reach out to her. She's offered more than happy to chat with anybody who's interested in Jerusalem. So I can definitely give her your information, or give you her information.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, friends, it's seeming like we've maybe exhausted some of the questions that you may have for now, which is totally fine. As things occur to you, as things come up, certainly reach out to Laura. Feel free to reach out to me as well. I don't know if maybe we can just share sort of the slides, if that's helpful for anyone on the presentation. Laura and I will talk about that and think about how we can share that or this recording. But we do hope that you really consider Jerusalem. If there's any of these concerns, whether it's safety or other just sort of practical questions that you may have, we hope you'll reach out to us about that. Give us a chance to help you imagine before you sort of write us off completely. So we've had a really great opportunity to work with students, and they've always, even the students in the spring who had to leave really quickly, really overwhelmingly said they didn't regret going to Jerusalem, even though their time was cut short, that they really feel like it was worthy of their time, even with some of the changes that had to then come with how they were taking classes in a different time zone than their instructors. All right, well, I hope everyone takes care. Thanks for tuning in and for your thoughtful questions and considering coming to Jerusalem. With any questions that you may have, again, please don't hesitate to reach out, and hope everyone stays safe, physically distance, wear your mask, all of the good things that will help us continue in community. Anne-Marie has been a wonderful example of this. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Bye.
Thank you.